Hi, we are students from DPR2A, and today we are going to discuss about issue of monetary policy statement. Let us introduce ourselves before we get started. My name is Nur Hakimah Alia binti Muhammad Khairul Abnadi, and my metric number is 08DPR22F1012.
My name is Nurul Hanisa binti Abdullah and my metric number is 08DPR22F1025.
Hi, my name is Ang Shetong and my metric number is 08DPR22F1031.
What is monetary policy and the overnight policy rate OPR in general? Monetary policy refers to the action and strategies employed by a country's central bank to control and manage the money supply, interest rate, and credit condition in the economy. The primary objective of monetary policy is to achieve and maintain price stability while supporting sustainable economic growth. The OPR is the interest rate at which commercial bank can borrow or lend funds to the central bank as an overnight basis. It serves as reference for determining the general level of interest rate in an economy. The central bank set the OPR based on its assessment of economic condition and its desired monetary policy stance. By adjusting the OPR, the central bank aims to influence borrowing costs, liquidity in the banking system, and ultimately the overall level of economic activity. When the central bank raises the OPR, it signals a tightening of monetary policy. But when the central bank lowers the OPR, it indicates an expansionary monetary policy. Lastly, OPR is the key instrument for central bank to use to influence interest rate and manage the supply in an economy. That's all from me.
So next, I will explain about the BNM decision of the OPR increase to 2.75%. So, on 8 September 2022, Bank Negara Malaysia has hiked its overnight policy rate by 25 basis points to 2.75% from 2.50%. With this, Malaysia's OPR is now up at 2.75%, with the ceiling and floor rates of the corridor of the OPR correspondingly increased to 3% and 2.50% respectively. BNM explained that its latest decision is driven by latest indicators that showed a further strengthening of Malaysia's economic activity in the third quarter, driven primarily by robust domestic demand. More importantly, domestic demand will continue to propel Malaysia's growth going forward despite a challenging global environment. And on top of that, the improving labor market and income prospect will also spur household spendings, whereas tourist arrival, which increased following the reopening of the international borders, will further lift tourism-related sectors. Not to forget, investment activities and prospects will be supported by the realization of multi-year projects as well. BNM also elaborated in its statement that the adjustment of the OPR will also preemptively manage the risk of excessive demand on price pressure consistent with the recalibration of monetary policy settings that balance the risk to domestic inflation and sustainable growth.
Hi, today I will talk about how households and firms will be impacted by the rise in OPR. The first impact is borrowing costs. One of the immediate impacts is an increase in borrowing costs for households and firms. Commercial banks usually adjust their lending rates in response to changes in the OPR. As a result, individuals and businesses may face higher interest rates on their loans, including mortgages, personal loans, and business loans. This can increase the cost of borrowing and impact affordability for households and the cost of capital for firms. The second impact is consumer spending. The rise in borrowing costs can reduce disposable income for households, especially if they have variable rate loans or credit card debt. With higher interest rates, consumers may have less discretionary income available for spending on goods and services, which can affect overall consumer demand and economic activity. The third impact is investment and business expansion. Firms that rely on borrowing to finance their investments and expansion plans may face higher financing costs. Higher interest rates can lead to reduced profitability and make some projects less financially viable. This can potentially dampen business investment and expansion, affecting economic growth and job creation. The fourth impact is debt servicing. Higher interest rates can increase the burden of debt servicing for households and businesses with existing loans. This means that a larger portion of their income or revenue will go towards repaying interest on outstanding loans. It may leave less room for other expenditures or savings, potentially impacting financial stability and future investment decisions. That's all from our group today. We sincerely hope that our discussion has been beneficial and insightful for all of you. Thank you for watching.